So let's get our webinar underway. Good morning. I am Nikki Perk, Spark BusinessWorks Client Experience Manager, and I am delighted to welcome you to our session, Your Roadwork for How Work Gets Done with Tech in 2021. Grit Technologies and Spark BusinessWorks have teamed up for this unique and fast-paced session. We're glad you're here to learn valuable insight from these leaders of Michigan's top business technology firms. So who are Grit Technologies and Spark BusinessWorks? Well, if you've Googled us, you'll see that we are located in Michigan with 5 offices collectively and service hundreds of clients. Together, we partner with both local and national clients with technology services across dozens of industries. So why are we here? Well, our promise today is to challenge your thinking, show you real-world examples, and give you actionable small steps, because technology and perhaps a lack of understanding can be overwhelming. We understand that. So today we chose a roadmap for our theme. Everyone has had a technology project go south. Together, Spark and Grit have more than 75 5-star Google reviews because we both do one thing: we keep our promises. These glowing reviews have rolled in from owners, executives, office managers, operations leaders, you name it, folks just like you. Grit and Spark are uniquely positioned to help business leaders optimize your employees' and customers' experiences. This dynamic duo offers complementary tech skills and partner regularly with shared clients across the state. Today, Grit will explain how the IT landscape is changing by offering examples of how they've successfully built and managed a secure and flexible IT foundation for their clients. Also, Spark will share how the software landscape is changing and provide case studies on how they've leveraged digital tools to work the way their clients' unique businesses work. Now, to introduce Grit Technologies. Their team specializes in expert IT consulting and providing network support services for small and medium-sized businesses across Michigan. They help clients build the right infrastructure and systems that their businesses need. It's my pleasure to introduce Matt Moline, our first speaker. Matt serves as the sales and marketing manager of Grit Technologies, and he's been helping clients for over 20 years. Matt, here's a question for you. What is one decision your clients are going to make this month that your team is helping them with?
Oh, just one.
Just one.
I would have to just one. I would have to say, I think a lot of clients are talking with us right now. Just really, moving to the cloud is really the right decision for them. A lot of, we've been stuck in this remote workforce, this whole working remote for a while, and people are really seeing if this is going to be the future. So we're just helping people navigate through those decision-making processes right now.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Now, as an introduction to Spark, we use design and technology to solve business problems. We help companies update their processes, websites, marketing, and interactions with stakeholders so that they can get ahead. And we like to say, get down to the business of growing. I'd like to introduce Brad Wilson. Brad's our VP out of our Metro Detroit office, and he serves as our company's chief dot connector between strategy and execution. And over a decade of technology leadership, Brad has built web platforms and apps used by millions across a variety of industries. So Brad, I'm going to ask you the same question I just asked Matt. What is one decision your clients are going to make this month in Q1 that your team is helping them with?
Yeah, thanks, Nikki, and thanks, Matt, for being here. Hello, everyone. Same challenge that Matt had. There's a lot of decisions being made as things are shifting in the landscape. But I think the one thing that people are really thinking about this month is the communication around implementation with their teams. So, rolling out new software with your teams, you really need to get the communication piece right. So, managing expectations with your team is really important to be planning out. So I think that's probably a hot item right now.
Excellent. Appreciate that. All right, let's go. Here's something fun. We're going to get this rolling with a quick lightning round for you two. You each have 30 seconds to answer this question. You have to work remote for 1 year on an island. Now, assuming that you get a laptop and that the laptop does have a working email, what is the one piece of hardware and the one piece of software that you would take with you to be productive and to get your work done? Brad, why don't you share first?
Absolutely. So I'm definitely going to pack light. I'm going to pack my AirPods. If I'm going to get stuff done, I got to be in the zone with my music. So I'm packing my AirPods, and I'm going to bring my go-to productivity software, which is Trello. That's where all my projects are at, all the tasks, the due dates, the collaboration between teammates, so that we can deliver stuff for clients. So I'm bringing Trello, I'm bringing my AirPods.
All right, excellent. Matt, one piece of hardware and one piece of software, what are you going to take to that island?
All right. So if I got a working computer and email, we definitely need connectivity. So I'm going to get kind of a consumer grade product called the Dream Machine from Ubiquiti. It's my switching, my router, and everything in there. I can get the security that I need. I think that's gonna be essential. And as far as software, I use a lot of different software, but Microsoft Teams is probably gonna be the best choice for me because I've got all of my applications, my Word, Excel, PowerPoint. I've got video conferencing capabilities, so that's gonna keep me that's gonna keep me going.
You are going to be very productive, I can tell. All right. I do want to remind everyone that before I turn it over to Matt, please send in your questions, and you can use that Q&A chat box on your screen, and we're going to answer those at the end of the presentation. Matt, please take it away.
All right.
I will stop sharing my screen. There we go.
All right. Set up here 1 second. All right. All right. Well, thank you again, Nikki. And again, I just want to say thank you to everybody for attending today. So I'm going to be talking about, first, how is the tech and landscape, changing, and the truth is that technology has been changing, for years. It's been the catalyst, for all of this has been culture and not necessarily the tech itself. And, for example, how we order food today has completely changed. Mobile apps and devices make it easy for, the customer to place an order, and have food delivered. And even, how we watch TV, it's completely changed. Many people have moved from traditional, television networks and they moved to cloud-based streaming services for their entertainment. It gives people the choice to view what they want when they want. They are taking over because the ease of use and the low barrier of entry that they have to offer. And of course, most recently, how we work was accelerated by the events of COVID-19, and how we work and how we adapt to working remotely in this past year has really changed the thought process for a lot of people and how we are going to continue to work in the future. Still today, and behind this is that business owners and employees are looking for technology and solutions to help with this growing in, this mobile workforce that's becoming ever present. This shift in how business and employees are, how they're working was not necessarily instigated by something that was really, that was brought to the table. It wasn't really instigated by something that was new, but something that was really already happening. And let's look back as far as 2010. There was already a growing trend in remote work that also coincides with the rise of, cloud computing and cloud software applications. The events of COVID-19 just accelerated a decade-long trend that was already steadily growing, and it was like just putting gas on an already burning fire. So when we look back at 2020, it's going to go down as the year of the largest shift in work culture in generations. I mean, organizations that we worked with literally became 100% remote workforces within the matter of just hours or just a few days, and some previously with a non-existent or even partial remote work infrastructure. And what was most apparent to a lot of businesses in this time is that remote work from anywhere model is really going to be here to stay. And some of this is really emblematic of a cultural landscape shift that, is changing. It's a slow change that takes place over decades and generations. And some of this is just absolutely just practical. I mean, for example, I have businesses right now that are looking to cut their office space completely in half because some employees just don't need it because they're working remotely right now and it's just working very well for them. Also, prior to the pandemic, many studies have shown that remote workers were actually more productive and more satisfied in their work when they were working remote. This thought process is really being shared by a lot of businesses right now, and it's contributing to the rise and continuation of this mobile workforce that we're seeing. So ultimately, what do we need to do about this? Well, this leads me to my next point, because out of this changing landscape, I expect to see two paths that businesses are going to go down. Businesses that embrace a hybrid model of work and businesses that really simply won't. And look, I get it. After being a part of in-person, for so long and having to host, these modified in-person gatherings, for your business, it's really human nature to want all of that back, and me personally, I want that also. But let's consider the first trend that we looked at, that large rise in mobile work, that's been changing over the course of the last 10 years in that changing landscape. Think of how that is really symptomatic, not really of a pandemic, but of a colossal shift in it's part of a colossal cultural shift powered by, digital platforms, much like the one that we're watching this webinar on right now. This is not going anywhere soon, and many businesses are looking for a hybrid business model of work. And if you're curious about what a hybrid business model can look like, well, you're not alone. And actually, let's take a look at some right now. The first model is what I like to call, and it doesn't really have a specific name, but a lot of people are calling it the micro HQ model. Many resources are showing that companies are taking, they're taking and they're thinking about cutting their office space, maybe about 40 to 60%. And this is consistent with recent headlines about a move away from a headquarters model. And this will allow workers to, work anywhere from, 2 to 4 days a week, and come, into the office, 1 to 2 of those days, only if they really need to. This also allows workers and staff the ability to have more of a designated space, in the office if they need to, while also supporting those workers that are going to work from home full time. And built-in apps like Microsoft Teams, like Microsoft Shifts, allows businesses to either schedule people to come into the office or allow businesses to have open shifts available for users so they can decide when they want to come in. This eliminates the worry of not having to work, this really eliminates the worry of not having a space to work for that day and allows employees to book a space really when they need it. Here's kind of an example of what these spaces, can resemble. There's no designated office spaces, and this allows for a come and go as you please type of environment. And there's also a couple different models, there's actually really another bigger model that branches off of this called it's called a spoke and hub model, where companies rely on a central hub or headquarters for important meetings and events, and a network of smaller regional offices or spokes that are closer to where employees live. This was really gaining traction prior to COVID, and the physical office space becomes a critical component of a hybrid workplace. It's basically acting as the central nervous system of a more widely distributed network of employees. Employees can spend days that require more, head down work, adding to their sense of work-life balance and removing unnecessary office distraction. The headquarters will be designated to, important stuff, important meetings, when you need to collaborate with your team, get those new ideas, out, doing those business reviews and that stuff that you need to do, face to face. The last area of is actually the co-working space. And this is something that's really new. This is a space where people, can have meetings and collaborate and just get out of the house or into an office space, get into an office environment if they need to. It's for people who don't want to go all the way down to, all the way downtown to the, the main hub. And spaces like these give employees the opportunity to meet customers and clients where they are, which can be difficult at times because not all clients can always go down to the centralized hub. Right now, companies aren't really able to do this because the real estate market doesn't really support it yet. But there's a lot of trend and there's a lot of things picking up into this area where you're going to be able to rent a space. And traditionally, you can rent a space for a few months or a year. You'll be able to rent a space with just maybe only just a day or even just a couple hours. So it's something to look forward to as we move ahead. A key component to making this work is going to be companies moving into a cloud-based infrastructure. Small to medium-sized businesses right now are reporting that about 11 to 50% of their IT infrastructure is just based in the cloud. And this is expected to increase in the next 3 years, where most are going to be expected to have about 21 to 75 of their infrastructure in the cloud. And the main reason for this is that cloud computing and software allows businesses to deploy a hybrid workforce. This allows businesses to have literally zero downtime and maximum uptime. The reason for this is that cloud infrastructure is easily scalable, as resources can be added in a matter of hours versus weeks. If you've ever gone through a server migration, then you know that there's scheduled downtime involved, and in just upgrading your hardware. Cloud computing reduces the amount of downtime. It also reduces the time needed to deploy new users, as deployments can be very fast, and it just takes a couple clicks and to set up users in the cloud. And then ultimately, this is going to be a huge time saver for a lot of businesses. One of the greatest benefits of cloud is the added business continuity it delivers. Because your resources are offsite, you can work from anywhere, and your business is not susceptible to a natural disaster because of all the data is going to be in these offsite data centers. Cloud providers and data centers are replicated across other data centers as well. This allows people to continue to access their data anywhere in the unlikely event of an entire data center going down. There are also a lot of benefits as well, just besides just the business continuity piece. Some of those examples are, like we already talked about, that decrease in real estate. Companies able to reduce their office space about that 40 to 60%. They can extend the reach of their talent pool. They're not restricted by just that 30-mile radius of where employees can be found within that 30-mile radius. Ultimately, a lot of people are seeing the benefits of saved travel costs. Having to you can save on those meetings, not having to expense that time, and also that gas for your cars to go where you need to go. And ultimately, that's going to help lessen the employee stress, adding to that work-life balance that everybody's looking at. And ultimately, that's going to allow you to achieve better customer service. As employees have the ability to instantly answer emails, phone calls, things like that, providing that better customer service for your clients. And to help give you more insight on how cloud can help your business, we actually have a free resource that you can go ahead and view right now. So go ahead and check that out. We'll also send you a link at the end of the webinar to check that out. And just going to give you some tips and give you a good understanding of how this can help benefit your business. So what is currently stopping businesses from implementing a hybrid model of work right now? So let's take a look at some of the top reasons. With the sudden surge of companies moving to this new work from anywhere model, servers and systems that were never designed for collaborative workforces that really exist today, are being taxed. This happens when newer technology is trying to be implemented on older hardware. Along with this, many businesses struggle with having no methodology or in remote access by using varying login methods and not securing your network. Combining this with outdated or end-of-life equipment and inadequate, consumer-grade hardware, many companies are feeling like their business operations are, slow and bottlenecked. Lastly, companies with inadequate phone systems are having a hard time in communicating internally, along with not being able to connect with their clients when they are outside of their office. On top of all of this, the simple truth is that old school technologies that were designed to prevent data from moving outside of traditional security parameters were never built to safeguard collaborative workforces that exist today. So this brings me to my next point, which is how security has changed in this new landscape. To help give you a better picture of what has been going on since late 2019 to present, I'm going to be pulling some data from over 1,000 managed service providers just like us, from around the world. And what we have found is that 60% of us saw cybersecurity attacks in the first half of 2020. This increased risk can be attributed to users' carelessness and also security vulnerabilities associated with the bring your own device, or BYOD. While most companies were really staying focused on just getting the work done, a complete abandonment of security at the same time was occurring. And attackers saw this, and now they're focusing their attacks on these exposed areas. And leading experts like the Hirschevek Group, who is a leading cybersecurity firm, also agree with this. You might recognize this guy from the hit TV show Shark Tank. He's one of the most, He's probably one of he's actually my most favorite chair, to be honest. And so, in one of his most recent articles, Robert Herjavec stated that more than half of the data breaches over the past year involved insider threats. This includes employees who have unintentionally allowed a breach because of bad cybersecurity hygiene, from unauthorized devices to failing, for increasingly sophisticated phishing scams, where there are numerous ways employees can be the weak link, even in the strongest cybersecurity infrastructure. As enterprises continue to navigate the remote work environment, the internal cybersecurity threat will only increase. Prioritizing cybersecurity awareness and education amongst enterprise teams will be the key to protecting your organization against cybersecurity attacks in 2021. Of the I would say of the many cybersecurity attacks that are around, the biggest still today is ransomware, as it is the biggest threat to your organization. If you're unfamiliar with it, what it does is once it's in someone's computer or network, it encrypts all of your files and important data, so you cannot, read them. It puts a ransom on them for you to pay. And as of right now, the average ransom is around $5,600, for small to medium-sized businesses, and the average cost of downtime for a business is around $270,000. These numbers are expected to actually rise, at the beginning of this year. These attacks also extend into cloud environments and SaaS applications, Microsoft Office 365. Many people believe that just because they are moving to the cloud, they are instantly more secure, and that is just simply not true. Ransom cloud attacks are up from 2018, and some of the rise can be attributed to the rush transition to these cloud-based systems and opening the door to cloud-based attacks. Still today, the preferred method of criminals to deliver ransomware is through phishing emails, and that trick employees to click malicious links and get ransomware into your network. As you can see, in the example video that I'm providing here for you, phishing emails are, what they do is they impersonate employees, they impersonate CEOs of companies, they impersonate software companies like Microsoft and other major businesses. These well-crafted emails are actually so good that even the most educated employees, are having a hard time identifying them. Again, from our data of over 1,000 MSPs that were surveyed, the majority agreed that phishing emails are still the large contributing factor, followed by a lack of cybersecurity training and weak password and access management. Those are still the top leading causes of ransomware. To dive down this into just a little bit more, here's a breakdown of industries as it relates to who's the most targeted by ransomware. Interesting enough, construction and manufacturing are the most targeted. And the theory around this is that their revenue is project-based, which makes it difficult for them to invest into IT infrastructure and other services to help protect them. However, they are at the most risk and are a large target because criminals now know that these companies are exposed, and most of them are not taking a proactive approach to protect themselves. And just because the data suggests that your industry might be a little lower on the list does not mean that you're not really less at risk, when you look at it. Attacks on small to medium-sized businesses all over are continuing to be on the rise. So ultimately, what can you do about this? Well, we're here to help you guys. So if you want to get ahead of this, we actually created a video just recently, and it's completely free to you guys, that helps give you 5 strategies to help prevent these attacks from happening and really just get ahead of the game. We sent a link, we're going to send a link, to this after the webinar as well, but you can go right onto our YouTube page, afterwards and check it out. And I highly recommend it. There's most of these options, these strategies can help you are most of them are free. So definitely check that out. So we've talked a lot about how the IT landscape is changing, and we've talked a lot about, the new tech, and also, talked about security. So where do we start to, launch your business forward in this new and changing landscape? Well, some options are, one, we can just kind of continue as is and wait until things, break, get hacked, which I think we would all agree is really not the best idea. We can continue to add systems and data without really, a plan, having a plan for our infrastructure, how we're going to support it and move forward. We can essentially just shoot from the hip and see if that works. Or we can start and look at the foundation of it all and work our way up. So where do you start? You start at the foundation. What is the foundation? Well, I'm going to tell you. And here's a little illustration I'm going to use to help you guys. So let's use this model of a house. With any great business, you need a great foundation. The foundation in our case is going to be the IT infrastructure. This is your hardware, your computers, your servers, your on-premise or cloud-based, servers. These are going to be your networking equipment, your operating systems. Once you have all of this corrected, once you have all of this solidified, then you can move on to the next piece of it, which is going to be your security. Think of it as your doors, your windows, your walls, the roof to the house. This is going to be your antivirus, your spam filters, your cybersecurity training, your threat detection software and hardware. And I have many businesses right now that we've worked with that really want to focus. They want to be secure, but they have open holes in their network. For example, if you're still using, Windows 7, that's an unsupported program and is not being patched. So there's open holes in that foundation. So you can't focus on security when you've got open vulnerabilities, in your hardware. On top of that, once you've got all of those areas solidified, then you can move and then you can add and then you can move forward with your business line applications, your CRMs, your ERPs, your custom softwares, that you have. Now, all of these systems are going to work a lot better and be more secure because you have the right solutions in place. And it helps to have the right partner in place to help you navigate this. So this is where I want to talk about really the benefits of using a company like Grit and the benefits of using a managed service provider. What people sometimes don't realize is that we, Grit, we're a hybrid work environment that utilizes cloud-based technology and software to support our clients. We live and breathe this stuff. We are in it every single day. We literally live and breathe IT. Our managed services from Grit Technologies provide you with more reliable performance and predictable expenses. This means increasing the value of your technology you've already invested in, while reducing the total cost of IT, and problems and the resulting downtime that occur with that. We do this by providing clients with an IT roadmap and a plan of how to get there. With our account management team at the helm, they serve as a point of contact for our clients and help give them the opportunity to achieve their business goals and help give them the most use out of their technology. With this changing landscape and mobile workforce, our tool sets can help companies keep track of all company PCs, deploy necessary patching and software updates remotely, and keep users up to date and secure, along with hardware lifecycle management. So companies can also forecast, expenditures over the course of, the next 3 to 5 years. And we take on the latest cybersecurity threats and risks to your company, and help educate employees on what to look out for with our cybersecurity training program. This gives businesses insights, all the way down to the user level of what employees are at the highest risk to your company. Proactively sending out those simulated phishing emails to our clients and giving immediate feedback and training to users that need that extra help. This ultimately is going to lower their risk to, getting a cybersecurity breach and, the downtime, for the company. With our support desk and clients, our clients are going to get the ability to see tickets and trends of, needs and issues that are coming in from their employees, along with getting real-time updates on, service level agreements, also, so they know that their needs are being met in the best time possible. You get more detailed information about, your company data and needs to make those executive decisions. We see IT as much more than just technology. We view it as a business tool, something that exists to help you change and grow and deliver more to your customers. We work with you to build the right infrastructure and systems for your goals, and we keep them running so you can continue to run your business. So we've helped a lot of clients create, strong IT infrastructure and, deploy great security practices. However, we still see many companies using anywhere from, 5 to, 10 different, software applications to run their business. We get asked all the time, how can they optimize their current processes? Stop using whiteboards for, scheduling, using paper ordering forms. How do we get better track, of our sales, and, how can we track, employee KPIs, especially when, this work from home model still exists. Through a common client, both of us, found each other, and soon we realized that we filled a gap where the other could not. Since then, we've been helping clients together and getting the best, out of their IT and software. Just as fast as the IT and technical landscape is changing, the software landscape is changing just as fast. So to continue down our roadmap for today, I'm going to hand this over to Brad at Spark, and thank you very much for your time.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, Matt. Wow. So Matt just dropped a ton of knowledge there. And Grit's really been a great partner for us to refer clients to, and they do exactly what they say that they're going to do, which is keep their promises, just like Nikki said from the beginning. So that stuff that Matt talked about, building a foundation, is super important. I'm excited to take the baton from here. What we talked about for today's content is now that you've got that IT and infrastructure foundation, you've made decisions about how you want the company to operate, right? And that includes business process, that includes culture, communication. It's all connected. So where Spark comes in is when companies are struggling with what we call the messy middle. You can't find the right tools to work the way that your company works. And that's why our mission is to build custom business tools that you will be proud of. That's our measuring stick. It's really how Spark got its growth from client referrals from the very beginning. So what does that actually mean, right? What is a custom business tool? These are software tools that they can be adapted to how you work, and they're easy to use. So we design and build websites, mobile apps, dashboards, custom workflows, digital products. And what that looks like is very custom to our clients and the industry they're in, the size of their business, and the way that they deliver their products and services. So our model is really to hire business savvy and technology design leaders to help businesses navigate towards this new normal, right? Like our clients are like digital Sherpas, we say. They're there alongside of other trusted providers like a Grit to help companies get to that next level. We deeply understand the business needs that they're trying to solve, and then design something that will work just the way that they need it to work. So typically these tools all started because someone like yourself, an owner, a manager, someone running a department or a team, knew that there was a better way. That this is the most common thing that we hear, is that in this landscape of crowded technology options, that you just know that there's a better way to get things done. Typically you're sitting there at the intersection of people, process, and technology, and you're trying to find that sweet spot so that you can catch up or pull ahead, get efficient, or grow. And when one of those gears is out of whack, you really feel it, right? So, a lot of small and mid-sized companies are still relying on analog processes. They've done it for so long, it's really still the norm. So this is the way that they work. Everyone knows that these types of processes are not efficient, but they've just always worked that way. So typically, you're going to have your decision makers, your people, who are still relying on things like emails and whiteboards and notes. All of the nuance and variables of your business that are at play every day. The people that are making the decisions are still relying on analog ways to put those things together. Now, last year, of course, 2020, we started to feel the pain of that even more abruptly. If you couldn't hand off those paper forms to the person in the office, maybe the PDF got turned into a spreadsheet. Maybe that was the evolution of it, just because then it could get emailed back and forth instead of being handed off physically. But even the static forms, even in a digital version, start to break down because of the double data entry that they require downstream. So we see this all the time. Even companies that are progressive, you're still relying on these analog tools. So these legacy solutions become pinch points if you're trying to get efficient or you're trying to grow. So you've probably got dozens of spreadsheets as well in this landscape. Data is pulled in or exported from these spreadsheets. You're pulling reports manually. We've seen some of the craziest spreadsheets. We've seen, all sorts of logic packed into a spreadsheet, and they have their place, right? Spreadsheets are not going to go away. But they don't have a user interface that's easy to understand and use. Only a handful of people, the people that actually design the logic in the sheet, are usually the ones that are trusted to even access them. So how do you get that insight out of those sheets? Is typically a problem that we're trying to solve, an opportunity for a company. And then you've probably got some gnarly mix of other softwares that are out there. Hopefully you're in a better spot because of a partner like Grit, who has helped you to get to cloud-based tools like Microsoft Teams. But you probably have legacy software that's maybe industry specific, something that was probably built and designed 20 years ago, and it looks and feels that way. It's very rigid. You can't get what you need out of it all the time, but it feels like it would be very painful to leave that system because of how long you've been in there. And so really the result of this messy middle is that you've got some key people in your business. Maybe it's Sue, or maybe it's Darren, or maybe it's Adam, but it's someone that's holding it together. And this is where the pain of the double data entry happens. This is where, at the end of a month, when it's time to run payroll, it's time to run reports, this person is working all weekend just to get the company up and running by Monday again. Maybe this is you. So there's all the inefficiencies of these analog and non-automated systems start to really come to the forefront there. So you're sometimes this can lead to some bad things in a company, right? In terms of culture, right? Like, how do you take a vacation? How do your best people take a vacation? What happens if someone gets sick, or what happens when someone leaves the company? So, it's this messy landscape, and it starts to bear, in terms of some of these business problems, and you're trying to squeeze out margins, or you're trying to get, things to be more efficient, but you can only get so far with spreadsheets and off-the-shelf tools. It's typically what we're hearing. And so here we are, 2021, post-pandemic, hopefully here by the end of this year. And as Matt alluded to, there is going to be a new norm. So most business leaders are really stuck trying to consider the cost and benefit analysis of maybe throwing an off-the-shelf tool at a business inefficiency. So we know that there is no shortage of apps to choose from, right? In your industry, pick a business problem, and you can probably search and find dozens, if not hundreds, of tools that have been built in Silicon Valley. And they're a one-to-many solution, right? And they've got maybe great sales teams, great demo videos. There's no shortage of choices out there. Certainly, we've come from, in the last 10, 15 years, where there really is an app for everything. And maybe, sometimes you end up with a great solution. However, the pandemic has illustrated that something else is happening as well. And that is where some of your competitors in the industry may have been launching their own innovations. And this is a very startling chart that just shows how much innovation happened as the disruptions of 2020, came to bear. So this could have been along the lines of the way that the physical infrastructure is set up in a company, like Matt talked about, but this could also be in the way that the work is done and the way that you deliver to your customers. So here's a consumer example, a company that we're all familiar with. If you look 5 years ago, when Starbucks started to really invest in mobile technology, they were thinking about how their customers of the future wanted to experience ordering coffee. Would they use their mobile phone? This was a question that they obviously designed a very intentional experience around. And this was a shift away from their physical infrastructure. So now, on my way to work in the morning here in downtown Northville, Michigan, I can tap 3 times and I can get my fix, right? I barely have to touch my phone, and I can have it connected to my bank. I can have that coffee waiting for me when I get to town. And this is just incredible. So obviously, your employees and your customers are used to experiences like this. And so, take another consumer example in the food space. And how do you apply this thinking of designing a really beautiful and simple experience that gets a job done into a business? Well, we see a lot of our customers trying to run reports, and maybe it's as simple as just pulling data from existing tools, or pulling data from existing spreadsheets and just displaying the data that you need to see instead of having to sort through a spreadsheet with 20 tabs. So even small and medium-sized businesses can really adopt the stance of innovation, and we call it thinking like a software company, so that you can get work done in new and better ways. And it comes down to making sure that your customers and your employees have tools that are easy, fast, and simple to adopt. Excuse me. So, we're going to propose here that you really have a third option. So instead of just thinking that you have to either do what you've always done and just maybe solve it by starting another spreadsheet or finding another app, that companies of all sizes can actually look at a third option, which is to leverage custom or semi-custom software to solve a business problem and connect in with their ecosystem in a more efficient way. So I'm going to shed some light on that, what that actually looks like from real companies. I'm going to share 3 stories very quickly, very different companies, and they're the most authentic stories that I thought I could tell today to illustrate how this goes into practice. So the first company is Andy Egan. They're a mechanical contractor in West Michigan. And they have over 200 field employees, and there's a ton of variability in the way that they need to match their teams with their projects. So scheduling was a really inefficient process for that. And when they first came to Spark, they had a board. This was the actual photo of the board in their basement that they would pull out, and their leadership team would huddle around every week. You know, it was not efficient. And what happened when they were outside of the office? You know, these decision makers could not access it, and it became very cumbersome to get the information about scheduling out to their employees. So they came and said, hey, we know there's a better way to do this. We've tried off-the-shelf scheduling tools. They just don't work the way that our business needs to work and handle all the variance and nuance of our services. And so they had basically an idea for something that would be like an ESPN board where the analysts are up on the screen and able to drag and drop and pull up certain pieces of data very, very quickly. So through our design process, we worked with them to unpack all of the business logic that went into what actually needed to be displayed on the screen. We looked at their existing software, where we could pull data from, how we could handle those variables, and all of the logic around that. It's a really fun process, and that's really the best thing about Spark, is that we get to see behind the curtain of companies like this and help them, you know, automate some of those things. Another thing that's changing in the software landscape is how open and integrated it is. So Spark is building systems that typically sit beside large existing platforms that we're not going to rebuild, like a payroll tool or an accounting tool or an ERP that's specific to your industry. Those are things that you might not want to necessarily rebuild custom for. But if they have an API, we can tap into that data, we can connect in, or at the very least do an import export, which eliminates, again, the double data entry. So the result of this is what we would consider a custom workflow. For Andy Egan, this was scheduling, this was PO process. They actually tackled several different parts over time. This was about a 3-year process where they just looked at the low-hanging fruit, the biggest inefficiency, and then they added on as they went. You know, so the new normal for them was the board that was drag and drop plus mobile friendly. They could have it on large screens or small screens, and it communicated scheduling changes out to the people that needed to see them. And so for Tracy and the rest of the Andy Egan team, they saw that efficiency and they saw that value in building something that sat in the middle as kind of that single pane of glass adjacent to their larger systems. And you can see the results. Thousands of POs are going through, and extrapolate that out amongst maybe the 8 or 10 employees that were having to touch these, and you start to really see the time savings in a tool like this. So Andy Egan, about 3 years ago, started thinking like a software company. They do not have software developers in-house. They have tech-savvy leaders who are forward-thinking enough to envision this new normal, but they were also savvy enough to be able to find other people in their industry that they could sell their code base to. So once they built their tools, they've been able to white label out and sell their code base to recoup those initial investments on top of the efficiencies. Okay, story 2 is the most authentic story I could tell you, which is pulling back the curtain behind Spark. So we say to think like a software company. Well, we are a software company, we get it. So, you know, what does that actually look like? And so for Spark, our vision is to serve 1,000 proud clients. And we want to find clients that share our values through fun, small, collaborative teams. And what that means is we want to work very closely with our clients. Before the pandemic, that was a lot of face-to-face. But now we can do that just as easily through Zoom. You know, when I started with Spark, we had 1 office, and the vision was to have 5 offices in 5 years. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about our growth and how even as a software company, we still leverage off-the-shelf tools in this mix of finding the right tool to do the job. So, you know, the way we do it is, of course, just like you, we rely on our people, our process, and our technology. And we could brag all day about some of the tech savvy and design savvy professionals that we have, and they are amazing. But we also have to provide resources for them to be able to get the job done. So when they come to work every day, that they're focused on our clients. So one thing that we leverage is spreadsheets. We use Google Sheets, and we actually do resource planning. And this is a very complex spreadsheet, but it's been evolving. And the reason that we have not turned this into software yet is we've changed very, very rapidly. So you don't want to build software around something that's going to change. That's one lesson that we've learned. Last year, we had a lot of growth. And so we actually had 22 new teammates join. So the Spark doubled in 2020. And the way that we were able to do that is by building out processes and having our tools be able to leverage those processes to get the information to the people that needed to see it. So culture, communication are obviously huge. Like I mentioned at the very beginning, I would take Trello with me to a desert island. To me, that's a go-to, and we use that across a lot of our leadership teams. So between Trello and Google Sheets, those are some off-the-shelf tools that we do leverage. But how do we capture that culture? You know, for project managers like Kevin and designers and systems analysts and back-end front developers, how do we actually, you know, have those teams continue to you know, have that customer experience and that joy and that passion that we have as our core values? Well, you know, one thing we also leverage as managers is a very lightweight system called Lighthouse. So this allows us to conduct one-on-one meetings with our direct reports and track their goals and career paths and have those conversations that are really meaningful, even in the heat of the battle every single week when they're working with clients. So just another example of off the shelf. You know, so these tools are adjacent to the work that actually happens, which a lot of our work starts with clients that looks just like this. This is our office in Northville where we were working on a website redesign, and we're actually using sticky notes and whiteboards before the pandemic, right? So as the process goes forward with our clients, we do have some tools that start to get more technical. And this is where we go from low code or no code up to both semi-custom and custom software. So we actually have our own project management system that we built because of the very specific way that we track our milestones in our projects. So our clients get weekly email updates that are semi-automated, but our product managers can actually go in there and customize them before they go out. So ultimately, as a software company, we're focused just like you on your customers and on your team. And we know that employee experience really does matter. Our tools of the trade are very technical. These are software systems that we would never build custom to, but we need to leverage these in order to actually deliver digital products. So we would not build these ourselves. And this is where off-the-shelf works really good for us. So again, we have this mix of tools like spreadsheets, we have off-the-shelf tools, and we have custom tools. So we do exactly what we would recommend to our clients, and we actually live and breathe that every single day. So these are just some rules of thumb when you're thinking about how to design systems at your company that leverage software. When it's new and you're still trying to prove a process, or you've got something that you think you've kind of bottled up that's special to the way that you deliver your products and services, that's where you want to stay on the low code or some code. And you can do that through prototyping. You can do that through designs, both low and high fidelity designs before you write any lines of code. And so this is part of our process to think like a software company. We think easy, fast, and simple. We get feedback from the actual users, and then we build systems around things that actually work and that are scalable. So the next story I wanted to tell is going to be another local company that's a client of both Grit and Spark. And Faithful Companion is based in Royal Oak, Michigan, and they were experiencing huge order volumes. So this is a pet cremation company. And so they are servicing their customers who are consumers in a time of need. So customer experience is very, very important. When a pet dies, you know, obviously the relational transaction there with the customer is very, very important. So they had been doing business, it's a family-run company for more than 15 years, but they were experiencing growth across the country. But they had always remained analog. So when we started working with Faithful Companion, they were processing those 1,500 orders a month just at one location, all in these stacks of paper order forms. They were scheduling their drivers to go out to pick up the animals and deliver their products and services just through a whiteboard. And they did not have a dispatch software to be able to do this. And this was across maybe as many as 15 trucks and vans that were out on the road at any given time. So the process of building a custom tool to get the work done, it looks like this. It's very simple process, but the devil is in the details, right? You have to unpack the business logic first. And so this is where we do take that crawl, walk, run approach. No code, low code, and then full system is built. So what that looks like in practice is starting with wireframes. We have a template for this that you can, before you even would engage with a software developer, you'd want to come with some of that logic unpacked, right? So you would actually start to sketch out what that system would do. Then you want to meet with someone who understands how software works. These are product managers, these are UI UX designers, to actually look at the business flow and understand where there are opportunities for automation and where there are things that the software should not do, which is just as important. One thing that is super important at this part of the phase is getting buy-in from the end user. So that maybe is your employees, or maybe that's your customers, but things like surveys, things like little mini prototypes to get feedback. Hey, what would you do if you had a tool like this? What are some buttons that you would want to hit? What are some reports that you would want to get that would save you time and make your work more enjoyable? And then we go through a very iterative design phase. So you're able to see what it is you're going to build before we write any lines of code. At this point, you're going through a technical phase of development, and this is where we have expert technical architects, front and back end developers who are actually implementing that logic that you've mapped out in your design. So again, some of this stuff might have started as spreadsheets. Well, now you can tell the code to handle certain variables and certain triggers, send certain reports to certain users. All of those things, if you know what to tell the software to do, it will do it for you. For Faithful Companion, it looks something like this. There are actually 3 process flow maps, depending on their type of service, that got put into their full app. So a common question at this point, as you're starting, your wheels are spinning, thinking about what's possible, is how do you actually, get a project from start to launch and actually being used? And this is super important. That's what I talked about at the very beginning, was the communication piece, and having people that are going to own the system, own the training, own the adoption. There's going to be a changeover, no matter what type of software tool you're going to implement. If it's a change is sometimes resisted by humans, right? So you have to design that out intentionally, communicate it clearly, and move at the pace that your team's actually ready for. So for Faithful Companion, their new normal, this is now rolled out to, I believe, 4 out of their 8 locations across the country, is a system that manages all of their orders. So thousands and thousands of orders each month across all their locations nationwide. But that all started with a couple of meetings here down the road in Royal Oak. So as they've been through that 3-year journey, and projects are not always that big, of course, it just depends on the complexity of the tool that you're building. But how do you actually go about embedding software that's going to be successful? And one thing we like to recommend is doing a pre-mortem, which is look at projects that fail and try to understand these things first. So not getting buy-in, not defining the ROI, and then scope creep, and having improper time and budget expectations. Those are usually the 3 things that go wrong. So we'll send some of these resources afterwards as you're thinking about going from an inefficient business model to a more efficient new normal. I'm going to go ahead and fast forward so we can make sure we save time with Nikki for some questions and answers, and also bring Matt back in here. But again, this is a before after of the results of just starting simple, thinking like a software company. How do you capture that secret sauce of your business and build that in with your technical IT infrastructure, and then leveraging software to do the work? All right, Nikki, we're going to go back to you. Check for some question and answer.
Thank you. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Brad. That was fantastic. I'm so grateful for what you were able to share with us. And thank you, guests, for attending today. We're going to make sure that we email those slides with those free resources. And now we did get a couple questions, so we appreciate that very much. The first question, and I'll throw it out to both of you, and then why don't you let me know who's going to take that. Do you think the surge of interest in tech will die down post-COVID? Brad, do you want to take that first? Do you think that surge of interest is going to die down?
This is a loaded question, right? So
yes.
I'm going to take a little bit of a contrarian view on that. And I think that people are going to have a little bit of tech overload. They're going to have Zoom overload and webinar overload, right? And I think that as things start to get back to the new normal, that minimizing and having the best possible solution instead of having 15 tools, maybe it's going down to 10 tools. So I do think that people are a little bit overwhelmed. So it's not going away, of course, but I would like to hear what Matt's thoughts are, because I do think people want to streamline and not have so many apps to go to.
I agree. Thank you.
Yeah, I want to echo a lot of what you kind of what you said, Brad. And really, is it going to die down? Yeah, I think a lot of people have fatigue, right now, but still consider, that growing trend, right now. A lot of companies are seeing the benefits in, all of this, struggle with all these shutdowns and things are going on. There's been a lot of light shed on, what is possible, and there's a lot of benefits, to and companies are really right now, especially in this month of February, really considering, do we really make that jump, ahead? So I think there's a lot of interest into what is the right path, the right technologies to get there, and but yeah, ultimately, let's weed out what we really don't need to make that happen.
Excellent, appreciate that. Now, how quickly are your clients seeing the ROI in the tech investment? Matt, you want to start with that one, please?
That's going to vary depending on client, depending on industry. Honestly, I've seen clients, for example, we work with, we have all sorts of, different industries that we work with, but we work with we were just working with a manufacturer, who, had, they had still on-prem, Exchange email, and they moved to Office 365. And we did a quick demo, about what they can do with Microsoft Teams and the inter-office communication and collaboration that they never have done before. And immediately within the next few weeks, as, our account management team was, kind of reporting back, they were using it. They were already looking into different third-party applications for different integration into a CRM. So, they really saw the benefit and they're taking off. So, the amount of downtime, the time and waiting for somebody to get on a scheduled Zoom call, to getting on on their analog phone system that they were using, they're already seeing the return, in that sense. I think a lot of companies, though, as they move into the cloud, there is a transition period. So I think there is a disruption period, in that. But ultimately, if you have the right partner, to do that and following the right processes to get there, that's going to ultimately reduce that disruption, and then that's going to help streamline your process to move forward. So,
excellent. And Brad, do you have a quick answer on your clients seeing the ROI and the investment?
Well, every company is a technology company now, right? Really,
right.
The reality is, so the way that you do the work and the way your customers experience the work is all going to be technology based in one way or another. So I think companies are starting to shift that away from this auxiliary investment into just their core business model. So that starts to change the perspective, and then it's not hard at all. I mean, it really should be back of the napkin math that you can figure out, time saved, for example, labor costs, efficiencies, not to mention the risks that Matt mentioned, and the opportunities like reselling your software and having it as a business asset. So tons of opportunity there, and everybody's a tech company.
Yeah, love that. Excellent. And the last question, we have 1 minute left. How do you balance using legacy technology on projects? So when you've already made that investment, how do you adopt the new technology? So what's the balance there, Matt? 30 seconds.
Yeah, I mean, using legacy technology, it's something that we can definitely do, and we almost have to in most cases, because, just to say, a rip and tear is not something that, is not always ideal for most people. But ultimately, where you can start, and how you move forward on a project is really looking at, at least on our end, it's how do we secure that with what we have available right now, and in creating that security. If you have, older PCs and servers and things like that that are kind of more towards the end of life, how do we secure that, in the interim, as we move forward, so you can maximize that investment without having to sacrifice the potential of, getting hacked or getting some sort of breach or data loss of some type. That those types of practices, put those in place, that's going to propel you moving forward, into those projects. And really understanding on our end, it's really understanding, what's the business goal? Where do you want to move to? And once we have that, we know what those business goals are. We can help you utilize, that technology as you move forward.
Excellent. All right. Well, we are out of time. It's already noon, and we thank you all so much for attending, everyone. I want to just remind you that we are going to mail you this, we'll email you this slide deck. Please reach out to Matt and Brad. They are available. They want to answer your very specific questions that regard and relate to your business and the way that you work and the processes that you want to improve. So again, we can't thank you enough for joining us. We wish you a wonderful day. Stay warm, stay safe. Thank you.
Thanks. Good job, Matt. Good job, Nick.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.